because we are back. Today we want to touch on that Nolan Wells situation. I didn't want to, like, honestly, I was trying to stay away from doing this because I didn't want to jump in. But I've been seeing a lot of things online that makes me want to just, we got to figure this out, man. Yo, we got 100%, we got to try to figure the situation out because what's going on is not normal. It's not normal. So let's see if we can break it down today and see what's going on. And also, I want to make sure you guys tune in. Drop your comments at the bottom. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you guys, based on what you've seen, let me know what you guys think is going on here. Is what the friend's saying credible? Is it not credible? I'm not here to judge. I just want the truth. I just want to see what's going on. You know what I mean? So with that being said, let's get into it.
I just watched a video. It is midnight. I just finished a workout and something clicked. I watched a video that made something else click that I watched earlier today, and that's this. The kid calls for a tow. The woman, Vicky, calls the captain to do the tow. And she says,
oh, let me go ahead and speed this up. Let me speed this up because I don't want to encounter any YouTube violations. You know how that can go sometimes. Let's hit it.
Grandfather, this Jerry Ackerman, is a member. Before she says the guy's name, the captain says, Jerry? I just got off the phone with him. I literally just got off the phone with him. And he said that they don't need a tow, that they're fine. Hold on. The grandson is calling for the tow simultaneous to the grandfather calling the captain of the towboat saying they don't need a tow before the captain gets a call from Vicky. When did the kid call the grandfather? While the boat is sinking? He called grandfather. What could grandfather possibly do for you? He called the grandfather for advice. We do. This kid's dead. Grandfather said, you got to make a fucking trail. That you tried to get help. There was an accident. Something happened. The boat's going under. Okay, it's a boat. Call. So there's a recording of you trying to get help for something. And we'll figure it out later.
You know, if what she's saying is facts, bro, Grandpa seems to be a little bit of an expert in these situations. I'm just saying.
I think that their story has evolved. But that was what the grandfather thought of then, to create a timestamp in history of what was happening, what they were doing, where they were. And there was a completely different emergency happening, nothing to do with Nolan, okay? And the grandfather did not want to get billed for this tow, and obviously didn't want the captain to go and happen upon whatever the fuck's going on. So he preempts the emergency call to the captain and says, hey, you might get a call, but they don't need it. I walked them through it, it's fine. It was an alibi advised by the grandfather. You remember.
Do you think that's real? Come on. Do you think that Grandpa has so much experience that he'd be like, right at this drop of a dime, he's like, yo, you know what? We got to get a trail. We got to figure out ways to cover this up. You got to call the Coast Guard. But I'm going to call the Coast Guard too. I'm going to call my homie and let him know that, listen, kids are going to call you, but don't worry about it. They don't need no help. Wow.
The Murdoch documentary series. You remember that, right? You remember when his son killed a girl in a boating accident, right? And how they completely jumped into action immediately without skipping a beat to do a cover-up. They all get back. They all wipe in unison, all wipe their social media. Why would you have to do that? Well, why the fuck would you have to
And she's just talking about a different case at the moment, but she's going to get right back to it.
do that? If you left him on the island, why are you deleting all of your social media? Another thing.
I couldn't imagine they want to get underage drinking on camera. So what they had articulated to me that it wasn't abnormal for people not to snap and not to.
Yo, this Brandon Tatum guy, he is I don't know how to describe him, bro. I don't know how to describe him, but all I know is that he was on Nancy Grace a few times, and Nancy ate him up. She ate him up. No doubt about it. She made that man into food.
A lot of pictures and things like that because they were focused on.
But you told me they showed you pictures and videos.
Yeah,
so
but
they
it's
did
not
take
uploaded.
pictures and videos.
No. It's not a lot of pictures and they weren't uploaded.
Shut the fuck up, Brandon, because he is spinning his wheels here, trying to convince Nancy that the boys were telling the truth. They let me see their videos on their phones. And that, of course, they wouldn't want to film themselves drinking. They all film themselves drinking. No, but they wouldn't upload it onto Snap. Here's why he just fucked up. The mother, one of the first days after this all happened, the mother said, we wanted his phone because he had snapped, and we wanted to see the snaps that he had snapped. And the snaps were deleted. So she had seen his snaps. The whole point of Snapchat is that you are able to post things that maybe you don't want a record of, but at least everyone knew you were having fun. The stuff deletes. You know if someone screenshots it. So he had absolutely snapped. They wanted to go into his phone, into his account, because you can see your historic snaps, and those were gone. And today, Crump, the family via Crump, subpoenaed Snapchat and Meta. Why would they do that if they didn't absolutely see his snaps? That those kids.
Yo, what? If those kids deleted the snaps of Nolan Wells, thinking that that's going to help them cover it up, but not knowing that Mom Duke's already seen the snaps? Bruh. Now when the mom subpoenas Snapchat, Instagram, to see what's going on, then what do? You're cooked. Then someone deleted it. If there really, in fact, are snaps of that day, which they're claiming that there isn't, that nobody snapped nothing because everyone was drinking, so they didn't want the adults to know. Now, if there really are snaps that were deleted, then who deleted them? Who deleted them?
Deleted. And this fucking Brandon Tatum is helping them cover it up. Fuck you. Ew, Brandon Tatum. Anyway, those are my thoughts right now. I think it's obvious to us all what the fuck happened.
You just heard the theory. The grandfather coached.
She was. I think she was spitting. For real.
The call. The tow was canceled before help could arrive. The Snapchat was wiped. The social media was scrubbed. And the question underneath all of it, what kind of emergency do you cancel a tow for? That is the right question. But a question is not an answer. And tonight we are not doing theories. Forget what you think happened. Forget what the reaction videos told you. Forget the enhanced audio. Forget every comment section you have ever read about this case. We are going to do something almost nobody covering this story has done. We are going to take the specific claims these friends have made, in their own words, in their own interviews, on the record, and check each one against the verifiable record. A timestamp, a GPS log, a call record, a tracking app, another person's own account of the same moment. Not what do I believe happened. Does this specific claim match this specific record? Yes or no? Because here is what nobody in this space is telling you. Most of the questions people are still screaming about online already have answers. Those answers are sitting in forensic reports, in server-side data, in call logs, in...
So this is where we're going to get really in depth. Really in depth. And do me a favor. Let me know where you guys are watching from. So drop that in the comments. Let me know what part of the world you're in.
Files that have already been completed and have not been released. The open questions in this case are not unanswered. They are unreleased. And there is a difference between those two things that changes how you should be watching everything. So before we touch a single interview, before we play a single clip of these friends talking, I need to show you what the records that do exist already tell us. Because once you see what the data says, you will hear every word these boys speak differently. Start with the boat. GPS data obtained by CBS News from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources tracks the vessel after it leaves Horn Island at 4:31 in the afternoon. It does not go straight home. It returns to the departure dock on the mainland, then into Fort Bayou at 5:52, back to the dock at 6:06, then to the Fort Bayou boat launch at 7:19. After that, it moves over land, trailered to a Biloxi residence belonging to the boat's owners. 4 stops across nearly 3 hours before the boat is even put away. Nobody connected to that boat has publicly explained what happened at any of those stops. Not one. Now the phone. Christine told reporters she compared 2 tracking systems on Nolan's device after she got it back. Life 360 showed one history of where the phone had been. Snapchat location data showed a different one. Same phone, same night. 2 records that do...
Now that's a doozy right there. The other thing is, what the man just mentioned, Snapchat has a different GPS record than Life 360. Now, I just found about this 360 app, and this app is pretty on point. You know what I mean? It just tracks you wherever you go. It's a tracking app, basically. So why is the Snapchat showing something different? That's what I want to know. I think that's what we all want to know. Why is it showing something different? Who changed it? No snap pictures? Altered snap locations? Something's not right.
Not agree. One of them was changed. The family filed 5 subpoenas in Mississippi Chancery Court: Snapchat, Meta, WhatsApp, TikTok, and Life360. But here is the part most people skip past. These are not fishing expeditions. Attorney Gary Bufkin's filings request IP addresses, login histories, password reset records, 2-factor authentication activity, and timestamps for every access point on Nolan's accounts. They want to know who logged in, from what device, from what location, and exactly when. Every one of those platforms stores that data on the server side. It survives deletion from a device. Whoever cleared those Snapchat accounts erased what was on the screen. They did not erase what is on the server. And that is exactly where the subpoenas are aimed. Then there is what the sheriff's office asked the public for: original, unedited photos and videos from Horn Island on July 4th, particularly those depicting alleged altercations or containing images of Nolan Wells. Listen to that word, unedited. They did not just ask for content, they specified that it not be altered, which means they had reason to believe that altered versions were already circulating. 4 GPS stops nobody has explained. 2 tracking records on the same phone that do not match. Server-side data that cannot be deleted from a screen. And a sheriff's office asking specifically for content that has not been tampered with. That is what the records say before anyone opens their mouth. Now I want you to hear what these friends said when they did. Now, what happened that night on the mainland? I want you to hear this.
Oh, these little liars. I told y'all that Jax was the ringleader. I told y'all. He sat in this interview and he was telling stories about that he was...
You know, this lady, she cooks. She really cooks.
Wasn't even their witness. So let's break down some of the stuff that I heard in this interview. Let's start with Warren's first phone call, because y'all will remember that Warren said that he was over at Ava's house for that 4th of July party when they all started realizing that Nolan was missing, and he called Miss Christine at 11 o'clock.
One of the first things I told Miss Christine Wells in the first phone call that ever occurred with anything to do with Nolan Wells being gone, because I was the first person to call Miss Christine about anything. Any first phone call, anything to do with Nolan Wells, was me making a phone call, Christine Wells. And one of the first things I said to her, with multiple witnesses here.
Now just drop the speed back to 1.25.
Pull up the phone call if you want. She said, oh, well, Nolan's location is with y'all at, where the house we were at. And I was like, well, no, he left his phone with us. I told her this.
And yesterday, the same time that this interview came out, Christine Wells said this.
360 says that he's on land, and he was like, well, no, I mean, well, we have his phone.
So both versions of the story say that Warren didn't tell her about the phone until after she confronted him with the 360. Now, Warren tells Miss Christine that he knows somebody in the Coast Guard and that he's going to call them, which is very fucking different than calling the Coast Guard, which absolutely explains why the Coast Guard came out and said at first that they had not received a call from the kids that night. The Coast Guard's initial statement said they weren't informed until 12:30. Then the Coast Guard later changed their story and said, oh wait, actually we did. And it seems to me that that first call was most likely an off-the-record to a friend kind of deal, which means these people freaked out and didn't call the Coast Guard until after all these people showed up at Jax's house. Which would explain why in the course of this interview it went from Warren called the Coast Guard to we did. Now when the subject turns to how the family got the phone back from these boys, you'll notice that there was a couple slip-ups.
Warren, you weren't at the house. And so you weren't there when they came to get the phone and all that. So
now remember, Warren just said that he wasn't at the house when the phone was got. And then more.
I think, outside looking in, the Warren character, he seems a little, you know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Talks about getting a phone call from one of the people in Christine Wells' group.
And how did they get the phone back?
So I got a call from a kid we went to high school with. He called me just asking me questions. He saw people posting on Snapchat, like the picture that was circulating.
Except this picture wasn't posted until July 5th. So how could this picture have been circulating on Snapchat that night? But let's continue.
And he called and he was asking questions.
That's a valid point. If they got the call based on the picture that was posted, the picture was posted on the 5th. This happened on the 4th. So what picture is he referring to? Because he blatantly showed, not he didn't show it, but he was blatantly referring to that picture. Blatantly.
He was like, where's Nolan? When's the last time y'all seen him? And then he was like, so where are y'all at? And I told him, I said, we're at Jax's house. And then Warren got on the phone, and I don't know.
So they come to my house, right? And they kind of hold on before we get there. Was it confrontational or was it just just trying to find? It was confrontational already.
Yeah, he was 110%. He was very confrontational.
When did
Yeah, was this on the night of the 4th or the next
this
day?
was the night when this was before they came and got the phone.
So this is the night of the 4th, yes.
You guys are missing a part of the story. How did you get from Ava's house to Jax's house? Because Miss Christine is watching you guys on the Life 360, so suddenly she's seeing the phone leave one location and go to another. Of course I would be upset. And now all of a sudden Warren is there when the phone stuff starts happening? He's listening to the phone call? Now I need y'all to remember that Warren also said that the phone was in his truck on the first conversation, as we have from this report. Meaning if we were to believe Warren that he was not there when everybody showed up looking for the phone at some time in between 11 and 1 a.m., so then that would mean after they heard this angry phone call, Warren gets the phone out of his vehicle and puts it in Jack's house and then leaves.
There's probably like 10, 15 people in my house I don't even know. And they're all up in our faces, going crazy, asking where Nolan is, and we don't know. And finally they get into Wyatt's face, and they're like, where's your boat? Where's the boat at?
Demanding his address.
Demanding his address and stuff like that. And he finally ends up giving it to him. We give them the phone. They have the phone at this point. Then they get the address to his house. Then they go to his house. And they're searching all over his boat, what I heard and stuff like that. Well, anyways, I don't really know much about that, but they come back to my house at around 1 o'clock in the morning.
We called law enforcement. I was with Wyatt at the time after we left Jax's house that night. I was with Wyatt, and one person we were with saw that their location was actually headed towards Wyatt's house. And so Wyatt got on the phone with 911.
I want to know who they were with that was able to track Nolan Wells' people back to the other place. How did they see their phones? I don't know what type of inside information these guys got.
It was like, hey, these people are on the way to my house or already at my house. My mom and my dad are there alone, and they know nothing about this. But Wyatt's mom actually, when they were looking at the boat, they were actually walking from the boat, and she came out and started talking to them.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Wyatt, Morgan, and Jax were all together. Warren was gone for some reason at this point. 10 to 15 people just barge into your house. Don't know why your grandparents weren't around. That might explain some things, huh? Guess y'all had the house all to yourself that weekend. But then they ask Wyatt for his address so that they can go look at the boat. Wyatt gives them the address. They start heading over there. Wyatt and Morgan get into a car and leave Jax's house. Somebody else that you were with that we aren't hearing about is tracking someone else's phone. I don't know if it was somebody who was with the group that they had access to, or if they were tracking Nolan's phone and they saw it was heading to Wyatt's house. And even though Wyatt gave them the address, and instead of calling his parents, he calls 911 and tells them, my parents don't know anything about that's going on. Can you send police over there? Now, mind you, it was about half an hour after being on the phone.
Now, why would he say my parents don't know anything about what's going on? Why wouldn't he call his parents and say, hey, we went across to the island with Nolan and he's missing? Why would you call the cops?
With Warren, that Christine was able to actually call and report him missing. But she was having to go back and forth and go down to all these different agencies because nobody would fucking help her. And frankly, I want to know why all of this confrontation was left out of report. Like, if this family had to be removed from 2 different properties by the police, why is there no record of that? And in fact, it wasn't until after these confrontations that MDMR and Ocean Springs Police apparently had their little conversations about who was going to be taking over the case. Because remember, the Jackson County Sheriff Lieutenant told them that deputies had spoken with several friends that had traveled to the island on the vessel with Nolan, and that when they were left, he was in the company of an unknown female. So now, even though Warren had supposedly called the Coast Guard, all these family members are telling the police that the kid is missing. These are the people that last saw them. They're all like, we last saw him on the island. Still, the deputies said that they did not have reason to believe that there was any water-related exigencies or emergencies. Don't worry, y'all, I've got a lot.
Yeah, and these cops, bro, these cops that were investigating the situation, they haven't been investigating nothing. From the moment Nolan Wells went missing, they haven't really been investigating nothing. They've dropped the ball 50,000 times. Like, oh my gosh.
More to say about this stuff, so come back for part 2. I'm going to be immediately recording it because Warren pretty badly in this interview, and I'll show you why.
She caught every contradiction in that interview except one. Warren is explaining cell service on Horn Island. He is talking about how hard it was to reach people, and he says he tried to call his mom 8 times. He says either her service was bad, she was on the back side of the island, on the south side, or his service was bad. She was on the back side of the island. That is not a figure of speech. That is not sloppy phrasing. Warren placed his mother on Horn Island. On the island during the hours Nolan Wells disappeared, an adult, a parent, who has never been publicly disclosed as being present. Now check it against the record. In a previous interview, Warren described calling his mom from the island with no difficulty. Service was fine. Normal call. Now he says it took 8 attempts because conditions were terrible. In the same interview where he says 8 attempts, he also says you can make calls from the island if you're motivated enough to do it. 2 descriptions of the same act, calling his mother from Horn Island, that cannot both be true. One says it was easy, the other says it was nearly impossible. The question is not which version is more believable, the question is which version the cell tower records support. That data exists, it has not been released. Now apply the same standard to Katie. The friend's attorneys told media that the group contacted Katie McCormack before Warren ever called Christine that night. They reached her through mutual friends. They got her number. She told them she didn't know where Nolan was. That is the attorney's version. Katie was contacted first, Christine...
You see, this is another little hoop to jump through. Because Katie is this mysterious girl who these boys are saying that Nolan stayed on the island because he was trying to holler at Katie. Like he just seen Katie in there, you know, little sparks flying here and there. So he says, yo, you guys leave me, man. I'm good here. But then when you talk to Katie, Katie's saying, no. That's not the case. Katie says, he left me because you guys were dipping, and he said, I gotta go with the homies. Somebody's lying.
Was called after. Christine's account has a timestamp, 11:07 p.m. She picks up, Warren says, hey, Miss Christine, have you seen or talked to Nolan? She says, no. Why? He should be with you. And Warren tells her there was a girl named Katie that Nolan met and he decided to stay behind. Listen to how he introduces Katie to Christine. There was a girl named Katie. That is the language of someone presenting new information, not confirming something already checked. If Warren's group had already spoken to Katie, already confirmed Nolan wasn't with her, why would he tell Christine about Katie as if she were an unknown detail? Why wouldn't he say, we already reached the girl he was with, and she says he's not with her either? The attorney's version says Katie was contacted first. Christine's time-stamped account says Warren spoke about Katie as though he was introducing the name for the first time. Both accounts exist on the record. They do not fit together. And there is a layer underneath this that almost nobody has pulled apart. Warren told the interviewer that 5 people heard him yelling for Nolan to get back on the boat. 5. A specific number. And in the same answer, he described Nolan sitting with Katie when the yelling started. If Katie was physically next to Nolan at the exact moment 5 people were calling him back, she would have seen and heard everything. The boat leaving, the friends yelling, Nolan choosing to stay or being unable to go. Katie's own account, every version of it, everywhere it has surfaced, has never once confirmed that she saw the boat leave or heard anyone calling for Nolan. Her sister told reporters they spoke only very briefly. Warren's own description of where Katie was sitting puts her at the center of the moment. Her own account puts her nowhere near it. That is not a theory. That is Warren's words measured against Katie's family's words. One of them describes a scene the other does not appear to have witnessed. Now, the sea tow call. The dispatcher asks how many people are on the boat. The caller says about 7. You are standing on a vessel small enough to see from bow to stern. You can count every person on it without turning your head. And you say, about. That word is not a mistake. You either know the number or you are avoiding it. A detective does not move past that word. A detective asks the question again, and watches whether the number changes. The dispatcher did ask again. The caller's answer shifted. No children. Nobody over 21. The dispatcher had to repeat the question because the response did not make sense. An investigator sits with that. Not because about 7 proves anything on its own. Because a person who cannot give a clean...
Like, this is, honestly, my people, honestly, does this make sense? Does this make any sense to you? There's so many discrepancies in this one little story. So, and if these boys are telling the truth, why do their stories change so much? Why is it that they have different stories almost every time you talk to them?
Head count on a small boat is a person managing what information comes out. And that is the same behavior pattern that runs through every piece of this case. The phone withheld until tracking data forced it. The Coast Guard contact made privately instead of officially. The social media locked in unison. The Snapchat wiped from the device but not from the server. Information being managed at every single turn. 2 autopsies have been conducted on Nolan Wells. Neither one has answered how he died. The independent pathologist could not make that determination because the organs that would show whether he drowned were not available to him. The state autopsy is complete. It is sealed. And the DA's office made a specific written commitment about what would happen next. On July 29th, the district attorney's office told the family's legal team in writing that Dr. Mitchell would have the opportunity to examine the retained
So if you're looking at this picture up here, on the top where the mouse is, this is the bruise that they found at the back of Nolan's head, which can't be explained. The back of his head has this bruising. Like, I think, man, I'm going to tell you guys what I think at the end of the video.
Body parts before any grand jury testimony. The family's attorneys followed up formally. They requested 3 available dates. They said they were prepared to move forward promptly. As of August 15th, it had not happened. A written promise from a district attorney's office is not a handshake. It is a commitment on paper with a date attached. And 3 weeks of silence after a family sends a formal follow-up is not bureaucratic delay. It is the same pattern that has run through every step of this case. The family asks. The institution agrees. Then nothing moves until the family pushes again. And here is the part nobody in this space is saying plainly enough. The friends' own attorneys have confirmed on the record that their clients voluntarily submitted their phones for full forensic analysis.
Should never, ever, if you're a lawyer, allow your clients to take a polygraph test. Now, we allowed...
So you heard what he said, right? Never allow your clients to take a polygraph test if you are a lawyer. However, what they did allow the boys to do was take a voice analysis test. They take a voice analysis test. Why is that? Because you know how to beat that, but you can't beat the polygraph, so you say, hey, man, we're not doing no polygraph test. Isn't that a little suspicious? Why would you let them do the voice analysis test and not the polygraph test? Why? Because the polygraph is going to be a little bit too truthful? I'm not saying.
Investigators from the jump to have access to their phones, their Life 360, everything. We have cooperated implicitly every step of the way. But no, they didn't take polygraph tests. But
not a casual look, a complete forensic phone dump, location history, cell tower pings, deleted messages, timestamps, conducted with FBI involvement. That means every contradiction we have walked through tonight already has an answer. Warren's cell service claims the tower records show whether he made 1 call or 8 and from where. The phone's movement that night, the location data shows exactly when it moved and which device moved it. The Coast Guard timing, the call logs show exactly when the first contact was made and to whom. The Snapchat access, the IP logs, show whether anyone logged into Nolan's accounts from a device that was not his. Every open question in this case, already answered. Sitting in a file, unreleased. The state autopsy, complete, sealed. The forensic phone analysis, complete, sealed. The DA's written promise on the retained tissue, unfulfilled. The grand jury, the family's attorney told NPR...
And that's another thing. Why is the DA, why are they holding up the lungs and the neck? Why don't they give that to the other doctor? Let the other doctor do what he got to do. Why are they keeping that?
It could convene within 30 days. The Congressional Black Caucus has sent a formal letter to the FBI requesting a full federal investigation and given them 7 days to respond. This case does not need more theories. It does not need more enhanced audio. It does not need more reaction videos. The evidence already exists. The answers are already sitting in completed files. What this case needs is for the people holding those files to follow through on what they have already agreed in writing to do. The question that remains is not what the evidence says. It is why the people holding it are making this family wait. Stay with us. I will talk.
This is a wild, wild story. Wild. Now, I told you guys what I'm going to tell you what I think at the end here. Now, what I think that something happened on the island with Nolan. A couple guys, they were drinking, probably got into a little fisticuffs. And then it went haywire from there. That's what I think. I don't know how true it is, how real it is, how correct I might be. All I know is that this guy's dead. This kid's dead. Nolan. It's not a kid. He's a older teenager, but he's dead. He's a kid. He's dead. And these other kids, their stories are sketchy. Let me know what you think in the comments.